And there we go. So as we begin, just again wanted to thank you. I want to guide your attention, everybody, to the bottom of your Zoom panel. This is a webinar, so we have a button that might not be around, and you'll see it's called Q&A. If you click on the Q&A button, there should be a place for someone to ask a question. Now, I'm a host. I don't have the ability to ask a question, so I want to make sure that someone can ask a question. Can someone in the audience ask us a question just as a sample, so I can make sure that this is working on my time one for this? I don't know where else. Oh, there's Lisa, Lisa Joyce, and a parent, and the person who used to have my job. So Lisa, I'm fine. William, this is working. And Andrew, the meaning of art is joy. So thank you so much. So that's going to be the great place for us to ask questions. Instead of worrying about chat, then the question area becomes good. I will be moderating those questions, combining them. And even if you want to have a comment there, then I will be able to share it to people when we have the time that we have talking back. Another thing that can help you out as you're watching, upper right-hand corner, you should have a little button that talks about the kind of view that you're watching. If you see it say speaker view, and you click on speaker view, you should see prominently the person who is talking the most, which will soon not be me. That is a really good way to work the watching of the to watch our presentation today, or you can choose gallery view and see the Brady Bunch the whole time. It shouldn't make a difference for the audience there if you are muted or if your video is stopped. I'm not seeing that there's any problems with the webinar in that. And again, the email address theater-tics@willamette.edu. You'll see that on my picture. If you have any problems, make sure to write us, and someone will be able to write you back. I, on occasion, am going to be putting the same information in the chat about, I'll just continue posting it and pasting it in case it disappears for you. The memo is going to be running as a live stream from October the 29th to November the 15th. We'll have the regular Thursday through Saturday 7:30 showings, and then we have 3 matinees at 2 p.m. So instead of going to the theater, you'll go to your computer. When that is all said and done, we're going to find one of the broadcasts that we like the best, and we will go ahead and continue to make that available as a purchase ticket. If you happen to be, in Siberia at that time and you don't have a computer at 3:30 in the morning, then you'll still be able to have a chance to see it when we are done. But we're doing everything that we can do to keep the live theater action going on. That'll be part of what we're talking about here. I suppose I've been doing a lot of adieus, so I'm not going to do any further of them. And I'm going to turn us over to our illustrious Professor Susan Coromel. She is professor at Willamette University in the area of acting, and also the director of the MEMO by Václav Havel. Welcome, Ms. Susan.
Why, thank you. Thank you. I almost called you Andrew, because Andrew's here. Thank you, Stephen. So about a year ago, we were doing our season selection discussions, and we knew we were going to do a Shakespeare this season. And then COVID happened, and the Shakespeare play we wanted to do was As You Like It, which most of you know is all about love and all of the ramifications of love. And I started to imagine directing a play during COVID, where you have to be 6 feet apart and you have to wear a mask, and I didn't know how to do that play. So I thought about it over the summer, and I asked my colleagues what they thought about changing it to this play, in particular, the memorandum, because of the spirit of the play, the themes in the play, and the genre of the play that would work much better in this world we find ourselves in. So before I talk too much about the play, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Václav Havel, For those of you who don't know, he is the playwright of the Memorandum, but those of you who might know his name, he, yes, was also the president of Czechoslovakia. He began his career, his theater career in the 50s. He was writing, he was working as a stagehand, an assistant director, literary manager. And his first play, The Garden Party, which was, I think, produced in 1966, 2 years before the Soviet regime came into power in Czechoslovakia. And when that happened, he became a human rights activist, and which led to the banning of all of his plays, and his plays were banned for 20 years. He wasn't able to work, so he moved to the country and was able to maintain his living as a manual laborer. And then in 1975, he wrote an open letter to the Czech Republic president, criticized the government, and he was imprisoned. And the longest term he was imprisoned was 4 years. Upon his release from prison, he became the leader of the Velvet Revolution, which was the revolution that happened in Czechoslovakia about 8 days after the Berlin Wall. So the following year, he was elected president of Czechoslovakia, which was the first free election in Czechoslovakia since 1948. And then he died in 2011. He was president, though, from 1993 to 2003, and then died in 2011. So this play, The Memorandum, is a Black comedy. It was written and first staged in communist Prague. The genre of theater is theater of the absurd. And in this play, it's about communication. Communication is the basic requirement of all human enterprise. And when that communication is destroyed, progress is at a standstill. So this play is also about the dehumanizing effects of tyranny on language and the systems that cause this disintegration. The play is about a company that is instilling a language called Pitaidapi that embraces basically communist ideology, but it's made to take all human emotion out of language. And so that's the thing that drives the play, and finding out who's making us have this new language. How do you learn the language? Who knows the language? Language is power. The knowledge is power, I should say, in the play. The play's main theme is that I think humankind is fragmented, manipulated, alienated, and at the same time it fails to assume individual responsibility, except for one character in this play. So that's why we chose the play, and it also resonates. You might be noticing, it also resonates with where we are now, and so yeah, we've been working on it for the last 3 weeks. We started working online and Zoom, and we're now in person. But that's what I wanted to talk about. And I know my two of my designers are here, and they might want to share some. I don't know if we have images. I don't want to say we do if we don't, because I'm not sure. If somebody else wants to jump in there.
I'll just I'll give a quick reminder to people, Bobby, very quickly, that if you have any questions for us, our email is open and someone's monitoring that. You'll see that on my screen, THTR-TIX. And then I think we're going over to Bobby.
Great, thank you. So I am Bobby Burwell, and I'm a costume designer. And I will share my screen briefly, and we can take a look at some of the images that we began looking at during the summer when we started talking about this play. is passed around and a way that it's assumed. And so looking very much at mid-century images and the oftentimes sterility of the office environment. I was very much interested in looking at the uniformity of the way office workers presented themselves, both masculine and feminine. There's a sense of repetition in this office environment, and there's also a classroom environment, and where the employees are learning to, and then also looking at contemporary images of the way that space might be divided. Again, that sense of repetition and movement. Right. Again, the sense of barrier between one worker and another, which is very much the world we live in now, right? Where we all have to wear protection. This almost cell-like environment in which people pass from one room into another room. The office cubicle was something that we looked at, and this sense of like a factory floor, right, where people are in constant motion and moving. And then, of course, there's lots of images from mid-century advertisement, which is often highly sexualized. So really, where we have landed, in addition to the influences of mid-century design, is this sense of uniformity in the clothes and the costumes that people wear. But because we are producing in the time of COVID, we are required by the university to always be masked on campus. Anytime we are in relation to other people, we have to be at least 6 feet apart. So these are the challenges that Susan and her actors and we are faced in terms of design. So building in that element of protection. So all of the characters will wear masks. They will attempt to maintain 6 feet of distance. And I think when you see it, you will also see the sense of uniformity that we are looking at in this very closely controlled color aesthetic and environment that they live in. So, and with that, I will pass it to my colleague, Chris, who can talk about the world of the play.
Let's do that. Hi. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I was also playing with, and the images will be thrown up in a moment, was of that same sort of isolation, but also regimented. I mean, there's an element to this play for me that is about a whole systematized process. And so I started to explore what are office spaces like, especially contemporary office spaces and divided rooms. And there are some images that I can, Stephen will throw up for you in a moment, so that they are sort of cubicles. And I was trying to play with also a regimented existence. So there's no difference. Every room is almost identical. The entrances and exits are almost the same. And so it's because everyone is in lockstep. They accept and they go along. And again, it's a lack of an individual responsibility or initiative to break out, apart from the one character who even succumbs. So it's a bleak existence. And I think, again, I want to go back to the point that Susan's making. It's this is where we're at now. We need to be able to speak out, I guess. So, Stephen, could you put the images up? I'm on my iPad. I realized all my images are on my laptop. Here we go. So I was playing with images of spaces that are isolated. Throw them over. Just roll through them, Stephen. It's fine. Thank you.
Let me.
There you go.
That working? Okay.
Yes. Yep. That's perfect. Thank you. So images are of a separation, but cellular. Images of sort of that are, again, you can see, but you're isolated. Next one. Oh, going back. Go.
Yeah, there
we go. And this is where I went with the original design idea, which was something that enables us to provide space that accommodates the distancing we need, and yet puts them all in this same cubicle. I was also playing with this sort of space thing, so that each of the spaces is almost isolated and there are little narrow corridors between them. We eventually moved away from that. There are 3 rooms, basically, that occur, and you need to be able to see into all 3 of them from different angles. With someone being able to move in behind who is listening and paying eavesdropping all the time. Eventually, I took out the center partitions, and that's what we're looking at now as a design. So that the center partition is taken away, but all 3 rooms are linked, each of them all identical. And the side corridor is around the back and on the edges. So, and I also put down into it on the floor a sort of grid pattern, partly to enable the actors themselves to know where they're at in terms of spatial distancing. It gives them a frame of reference, but also it becomes a regimented cellular existence. So that's what I played with. That's me done.
Is that being built right now, Chris?
Yes, they're in the process. We've been a little bit handicapped because we had to shut down on the campus. So I believe they are starting work on that. The materials have been delivered for the steel. So it's a steel frame structure, and the plastic sheeting is being delivered, I think, sometime next week. So it's going into process.
And Bobby, how goes the costume building? I'm expecting that you may not have your full shop with you at all times right now.
We're actually progressing very well because of the uniformity of it. Many of the items are either pulled or purchased. And given the restrictions of COVID around that, we're really not doing any building.
I see some people starting to write some questions, which is really great. We have one little moment that we want to share before we go open it up to full questions. So go ahead and keep the questions up. I see somebody's asking about cameras, and we'll be talking about that soon. Wanted to give the opportunity for the cast to tell you a little bit about what it's like for them to be rehearsing in this day and age, in a very, very different kind of rehearsal. And we've got all the members of the cast, well, most of the members of the cast here. I don't know if there's all of them yet. Give a wave, everybody that's in the cast. So yes, the waving people are acting people. I think one of the things that people might be interested in is how the heck do you rehearse this sort of thing, and what are the challenges and what are the advantages or benefits that you have during this time? Have you been in your room the whole time? Have you gotten together at all? How is this working out for you?
I think it's been going surprisingly well. We have been starting in-person rehearsals, and something that works well with this show is that having to keep 6 feet of distance, it's helped us practice building tension from far away, which creates sort of that isolated lack of communication feeling. So it's kind of an interesting plus that we didn't really expect. But prior to this week, we were doing rehearsals online. That's at least been my perspective. I don't know. I invite my other cast members to speak too.
I would definitely agree with that. I've found it really interesting to be able to play with kind of pressing in on people's spaces and forcing them to move that way, which is because if I take a step toward you, you have to take a step back, or else we're within 6 feet of each other, and that's against the rules.
You used the term weaponized distance in rehearsal yesterday, and that's a very loaded term that perfectly describes what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that is That's a super cool element. It does become very challenging. Every scene almost becomes like a puzzle, especially scenes that have like more than 3 people in them. Because if I'm standing here and Faye's standing over there, then we can't have, like, where does everyone else go? So it almost feels like playing Tetris sometimes.
Yeah, especially since Maya and I do a lot of mirroring with each other since we're kind of partners in crime in this play. And so like oftentimes we're like on opposite sides of the room, and that really defeats like a lot of the dead space in between us because of the amount of space that we don't have. But it's also been interesting trying to like mirror someone from a distance as well and try and like pick up on their behavior from a little bit away. So that's been kind of fun to play with.
Something I really enjoyed about this process, about the direction that we've gone, is that going from Zoom to going in person means that we've basically gone backwards in terms of the way we usually rehearse. Most of the time it's you'll go blocking and set first, and then once you've got all that information, then intentions and acting choices start getting layered on top of that. But because we're in a world where distance and intentional movement is so purposeful, it's so loaded, it is really helpful to have all of the knowledge of intentions and acting choices motivating all of these really careful and precise movements. So it almost makes it easier, I think, to do the blocking because you know why you're going where you're going instead of having to answer that question for yourself after the fact.
Something that's also been kind of interesting for me is my character doesn't speak for most of the play. And so I've had to figure out how to be expressive without words, and particularly without the lower half of my face, because when we're like on Zoom, it was one thing to like have my full face and be able to express myself that way. But having half my face limited really limits what I can do, but also really opens me up to a lot of different things that I hadn't expected before. So like having to try and find different parts of my body to use to express myself has been an interesting challenge as well.
Yeah, kind of building off of a similar experience. All of the clerks, with the exception of Kalos, who I don't believe we have here with us, we're completely mute, and our characters are we're building like this sort of fun, abstract, but mechanized way of movement for all of us. And over Zoom, that was nearly impossible with all of us sitting at our desks. So this past week, we've just been given time to mess around and like play with how we can be cogs in a machine, but all working together in a unified but strange, not quite human way. And that transition from being on Zoom to in person kind of shocked us all into reality of how realistically difficult it is to, you know, take 3 people who don't speak and are just these kind of funny goblins that just kind of exist in the space and are always sneaking around, and then making intentional characters who have something to go for out of it, if that makes any sense.
There's a question that was just posted on the chat asking particularly how we're thinking about using color and aesthetic, especially costumes, since it is going to be filmed. So we're really keeping a very tight and controlled palette. And I am staying away from patterns that might do a little bit of vibration that we sometimes see on film or video. And so that's one of the ways that we're thinking about it. Filming will be a challenge. You know, we will be doing some experimentation around that. Our colleague Rachel Steck, who couldn't be with us today, is in charge of that area and working with a crew of, I believe, 4 or 5 students to really perfect how things will be filmed. And there's another component to that question, and asking, will there be live audience? So we are still waiting for approval from the university to have live person audiences. If we are granted live person audiences, they will only be people who are currently on campus, so students, faculty, and staff. So anybody from the surrounding community, regardless if we can have a live audience, will have to see it via the live stream and or recorded version. But the good thing is that family and friends who are outside of state and who couldn't normally see a show will be able to see it. So that's a plus. Yay for family.
Since we're talking about the filming, I'll go ahead and answer one of the other questions that came in, and that was, how the heck are these cameras going to work? They say, how many cameras are going to be on to shoot the set and the production? Is it one per cell, or is there a camera on the dolly? The Willamette University Theater always has the participants, the majors, minors, and scholarship holders, to be a part of each production. That's one of the things that is a part of the Willamette University Theater experience. So we were able to add some positions this time around that are camera oriented and film oriented. Those include 3 people that will be working cameras, and then 1 person that is going to be doing live editing. If you imagine the control booth at a television station, for example, there's a person that's selecting camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. So during the course of the rehearsal, toward the end, we'll be bringing 2 of those people. I think the idea right now are 2 more or less close-up cameras, and 1 that is giving a broad view. As far as their movement about, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but we've got such creative people. I can't imagine that they want to take the boring option all the time. So what people will be seeing on the live stream is really like the old Lucy show or the old Honeymooners show, where you actually had people on a traditional set doing a live broadcast. They only get one chance to do it, just like live theater is. And there is a person that is actively helping guide the viewer into the different areas of the action as they're going on. Now, granted, in the traditional format, we love theater because we can see all of the extra little things that are going on around the side. We have the wide camera to do that. So there's some learning that's going to be happening, but I'll tell you, with not just with COVID, but also the life that we're living in, that we're all online, it really benefits for us to be able to help students prepare for what might be the next stage in theater. There's no guarantee that once all viruses are gotten rid of, that we won't want to continue working online. Let's put it in a positive way. We could be excited to use broadcast in a virus-free world. So this is the first group of people that are going to be learning theater and also theater broadcast. Someone asks also if there's going to be subtitles, so to service the community that can't see your faces. I'm going to pass that over to Susan in a moment as far as the challenges working with face masks. There are some closed captioning elements that are there that can automatically make closed captions come forward. Interestingly enough, and maybe Susan can address both the face masks and also pedotypy, and how would closed caption capture that sort of thing? Susan, do you want to address?
Right. Well, we've talked about that. We do notice that there's the face. The actors are working diligently to eliminate as much of that as possible. And what that has to do with is just over crisping your consonants, all of your consonants, both beginning, middle, and end of words. Now, pedotypy is a gibberish language that some people in the play speak, and if it's a computerized captioning system, I suppose it will probably try to create words out of it. So it's a really interesting question. I have no idea what to expect from that part of the play. But it might be a good idea for sure to have captions for people to choose, right?
I can foresee that after again, we're making this up. So this question actually gives some really great impulse for the faculty and staff and the kids to actually put something else forward. I hadn't really thought too much about closed captioning, but I can see that, I mean, as we're talking about the live streams that are followed by one document that can continue, one broadcast that can continue forward and can be seen recorded after the run of the show, that could easily be closed captioned. And it might also be fun that way, because one can see what Václav Havel has written in Podiatopy, which I didn't even try to pronounce the words. I don't know how you're doing it in rehearsal, but who has to say that? Who has to speak Podiatopy?
Fully winging it. We did not do like a Podiatopy, here's how you pronounce all the words. We just go for it.
Because none of the people in the play would. This language just shows up and it's like, speak it.
This language is made up.
So you don't have the grammar person coming in and telling when you pronounce the new fake language incorrectly?
Oh, there is the teacher of the language, but nobody can follow him anyway. Except for one character.
And related to the masks, Susan, someone asked or actually the actors as well, with the masks on, how do the actors plan on conveying emotion? How big of a barrier does it pose as actors? I know you answered a little bit about that, but I know that Susan, you've got a long history and different styles of acting that involve both face close up and the incorporation of the body. Have you been pulling from any of that with your working with blocking?
I mean, we're at the very beginning. We just staged Act 1 this week and did a stumble through of it Friday. And we are starting to work with movement, to work with more abstract ways of doing. But the play is also pretty bureaucratic. Got to follow the storyline to understand where we're going. So there are certain characters that have more flexibility in their movement. But we kind of joked last night that they really have to keep their eyes alive, right? That's the most important thing, because we don't see that, and you realize how much we express subtlety in the rest of our face, but so they have to start kind of focusing on their eyes. But when they're actually really just playing their actions, it's not a problem, because that enlivens them. So it's and we don't, because we don't know if we're having an audience or not, and not knowing if you're having an audience or not kind of changes things for how you stage. So I don't know how to do it any other way but to stage it as if I had an audience. I just don't know how else to do it. But if we don't end up having a live audience, if our the committee that decides no, then we might have some more flexibility with cameras to get in a little bit closer for people, and I don't know.
Actors, are you discovering ways that you can jump from outside of your face mask and into other parts of your body as you're working around, and how does that affect you does that make a change in the way that you get emotion, intentions, and things across?
Yeah, I know for me personally, as an actor for a while, I've done a lot of my work has mostly been face expression centric. So that has been it's been definitely a learning experience. And what it's become is more like physical movement body acting. Like, for example, the character I play in this show, it's an absurdist piece. So she's just combing her hair the whole time. And the ways in how do you comb your hair like this? Or can I comb my hair like this to convey that? And just really getting into the brush acting or the bracting, if you will.
It reminds me of that old-fashioned fan language that they used to have
Right.
in the Victorian and Edwardian eras, where if you had a fan going quickly, it meant that you were irritated with someone, and there were ways that you could put it behind your ear if you were attracted to someone. There's like a whole new language there.
Well, and Katie plays with tempo in brushing as well.
Yeah. So, fun. It's a lot of fun.
I've also, because I have a lot of huge blocks of text in this play, there's at least 3 instances where I just stand on stage monologuing. I've had a lot of fun working with my voice as an additional tool. There are some moments where I'm just, even in my regular speaking, I'm going into the realm of like the transatlantic accent a little bit in order to over articulate and really lay on thick the levels of emotions and vocal dynamics, because you lose a certain amount of that through the mask. But also when you have what you get through that paired with body language and facial expressions that you can see, it's just another cueing tool that can help the audience. And especially when you have such long blocks of text and such long blocks of text that are nonsense, it's important to use all the tools you have.
I'm going to combine a few other questions here that come from my producer friends I see in town, and they're asking specifically about how we were able to secure the rights to do the broadcast. Lisa Joyce at Pinnacle Theater, yay Pinnacle, asks about how did you secure the rights to record it? What platform are we using? And then Christine Ferreter asks about what kind of hoops we had to jump to get this to be on a film and stream version. Right now, the rights organizations have been extremely helpful in being able to help any theater get their work out however possible. In the past, when I started theater managing about 25 years ago, I was told that the people that hold the rights are the enemies, but they're not. They want a show to happen just as much as we want it to happen. So all of the rights organizations that we've worked with have offered to us something that we usually wouldn't have. If we want to do a broadcast version, usually we'd have to find someone else that held those rights. But now the royalty companies are working as a middleman, and they are connecting us with that other person. They're working as a middleman, and they're handling the broadcast rights. For any producers out there, you might be kind of surprised to find out that the broadcast rights are not a scary issue. In fact, you might find that broadcast rights are cheaper than live performance on occasion. So it is something that your rights organization that you would generally get royalties for, they want to help you out. They want to get money. They want you to be able to do shows. So they're doing everything that they can to help us out. Just talk to the agent that you have with you. The broadcast itself, we're going to be working on YouTube, and the idea is similar to today. When you purchase a ticket, you will be given a link, but this link will be like a one-time only link. So if you want to see Saturday, November the 2nd, I think that's a Saturday, maybe, at 7:30, then your email will allow you to watch it at that time. And for those that have not been able to watch it at a specific time because of whatever, just call the box office and we'll arrange for another viewing position for you. And just a little bit about tickets, since I'm also in the ticket land, we'll be working with a general, the prices are pretty much the same as they were last year. So one show is $12 for general, $10 for seniors. If you want to see more than one show, like a subscriber will, then we'll be offering them in flex passes. That allows you to have 4 different viewings, and those will be $9 a piece. And that works for the 4 different presentations from the department. One change this year, however, is that all students will be working at a $5 rate. We've dropped that down, so it's $5 for all students. Let's see what other questions. Lisa Joyce has another question, which is wonderful. Susan, has there been any collaboration and also maybe some of the actors that have worked a lot with dance instructors or anybody to help assist with using bodies for more expression? And related, Susan, someone asks about, there's some good questions about how does it change your way of blocking and directing. So there's some other words about moving. Ideas about bringing in dance. Someone also asks about isolation and loneliness. Oh, that's a thought question. I'll bring that one in later. So,
we are not working with a choreographer specifically. We are, using practices of building choreography through time, tempo, and exploring levels, and allowing it to be sort of brought in by the actors. And in terms of the clerks are probably the most abstract of all the movers. The clerks are the ones that are the bottom of this pyramid, where power, the power dynamic that goes to the very top of the bureaucracy. Does it change the way I block it? No, it doesn't. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it has not changed. A firm believer in helping an actor understand what's driving their action, so that they are making choices from their impulses, and then I tidy that up so that it makes pretty pictures. But I find that to be the strongest way to block anything. So when we get the students who are going to run the cameras into the space, they're going to watch it for a long time when we do runs, and then they're going to start playing, and we'll start to put that together. Will I be in charge of the final product of I don't think so, actually. I don't think I am in charge of what we broadcast. I don't know if that's good or bad either. So we are all just, walking on freshly frozen ice at the moment.
actors, when they ask about choreography, we make you all take dance classes. Is that a good thing? Has this helped? Is there anything that you can pull, or any moments as of yet that have made that a good idea that we made you do dance classes?
I've personally loved the dance classes that I took here, and my character is a creep, and I use Martha Graham's contract and release to help gesture towards other people's bodies in a creepy, drunk, and yet authoritative and pretentious way. My character has a lot of things to balance, so I have been trying to use that in playing with my character, the different sets of education I've got about modern dance. And so then that's also led me to can you not hear me? Okay, cool. That's also led me, acting, it's so important to watch your partner. I've been watching people's bodies more than their faces to try to react to that and to try to build a connection in that way. And that's entirely what you do in dance, because you can't say, run over here now. No, you're supposed to spin. You have to just do it. So you have to watch people's bodies. So that has also helped me, learning to track people's bodies and react to that, counter to that. All of that's helped.
I want to share Craig Pesci-Strobel as he writes. He says, so we're going back to the future or forward to the past to learn from Desilu with 3 live cameras. Then there's the element of layering on special effects, background, splicing in other video footage. The sky's the limit. Interestingly enough, Craig et al., later in this year, the music department, the vocal arts area, is going to be presenting a musical, and that's part of the season at Willamette University Theater. Cradle Will Rock by Mark Blitzstein. You can check out the movie Cradle Will Rock that Tim Robbins did, which was about the creation of that, sort of a fantasy creation of it. A 1930s play that was done with the National Theater Project during the Depression era, where they were also doing a lot of innovation. What the director, Catherine Scavira, is planning on doing with that actually does include some live and some pre-recorded. So while we are actively mixing 3 different cameras, and we do have technical director that's going to be helping to figure out how that's going to work each time. It's not just going to be random. I mean, it's going to be very, very informed. The music department is taking a different approach on it, where they're going to be combining live and pre-recorded. So that way they can have ensemble scenes and they can have separate scenes. So there's all kinds of experiments that we're, you know, theater always has to adapt. We just have to do that. They decide we're going to have electricity and people are staying indoors, and we figure out, well, I guess we're going to have to invent sound and lighting design. I guess we're going to have to invent that. And then we did. Here's the thought question, and this would be a great one to have cast members ask. Let's kind of go together, a couple of them here. One of them says, we know COVID has created feelings of isolation and loneliness. Do you find as cast and crew that being in this production creates a sense of community and purpose? Do you think that do you think this is a pro for theater, especially now that we are in a pandemic? Someone else, this is, I don't know if this is related. I'm going to go ahead and loop it in just the same. Stage acting and directing is different from video, film acting and directing. Is this experience suggesting some new ways you might go with the program? So maybe they are kind of disconnected. I like the thought question about COVID, isolation, loneliness, and how does Zoom complement, break through, and reinforce the loneliness? What is community about now that we're working with this new format? Obviously, everybody speaking at once is a big problem.
I think something that we've all been able to do is, I think we can recognize that while COVID itself is not an advantage, suffering together is better than suffering apart. And so having rehearsals, having a play that is at least somewhat, and in many ways largely related to how we feel, with the theme of disconnect, you know, it can be therapeutic. And so in that way, I think it's important. I don't know, it's sort of if we're to talk about like our feelings as artists, I think a lot of us right now in this time are in our lives learning about ourselves, and the whole world is also changing. So it can be hard sometimes to like be, 18 to 22 years old when the world feels like it's on fire. And having something like a structured rehearsal to go to talk to people who you trust and who you kind of grow up with into your, adulthood is special. And I'm thankful that I'm not just like, I'm home now, but normally I'm like in Salem. I'm just like from Portland. But it's good to like feel like I have a home to go to, whether I'm in Portland or Salem. For all of us, I think it's created a level of stability during a very unstable time. So in that way, it's very good. And I do think it will allow for audiences to kind of see like why we're frustrated with our like political sphere right now in some different ways, especially as it comes to like lack of communication. So that's kind of general specific, but.
I want to get from each of the cast members just kind of like a round robin with this new life that we live, this next stage. That's kind of the word that we've been using in publicity. Someone asked about publicity, by the way, and I'll just quickly touch on that, Randall. There haven't been a lot of changes in publicity because more and more things have been geared online. So we're just looking forward to doing more online. Probably the biggest challenge for publicity is that we won't be doing posters in town. So that that's a little bit more of a limitation. But we have had our marketing and communications area at Willamette University really step forward to try to find new ways that we can get this out. They're loving this live broadcast, or the broadcast in general, because our parents and our alums at Willamette will suddenly be able to see things that they haven't before. We'll be connecting with them online as opposed to phone calls or letters this time around. So the round robin for the actors. Tell us, what is the thing that you missed the most about the old rehearsals, and what is something that is the coolest about the new rehearsals? You may have already touched on that, but I'm just kind of interested because I don't get to see you guys all the time anymore. So tell me what you miss and what you love.
I miss hugs. That's kind of a general thing, but just in the rehearsal process, just being able to hug my castmates is always really nice. And that's not a thing that's happening anymore. But one thing that I find really good about the new process, is the ways in which we have found community kind of despite our distance. And this kind of sense of we're doing something weird and we all know it. I don't know, it creates a very interesting dynamic.
Similarly, what I miss the most is just being able to share intimate space. Something I remember so much from previous shows was in the interims between, like on breaks, just being able to lie on the ground with people during rehearsal, or just be silly in the corners and just share a physical space. Because now during breaks, we have to evacuate the rooms. We have to leave in order for the air to circulate. So we don't get to imbue our rehearsal spaces with our spirit as much. It feels a little bit more sterile. But what I do appreciate about the changes we've had to make to work within COVID restrictions is, and this also goes towards theater as a whole that is reckoning with this right now, is it's forcing us to ask what we were doing just because it's either what everybody else is doing or that's just the way it always is. You always do it 10 to 12 during the Q to Q week. You're always there from 12 p.m. to 12 in the morning. Versus what do we actually want to do and what actually will be helpful to us. Professor Jonathan Cole, who is the thesis instructor for seniors, has talked about how when we start to do in-person shows again, 10 to 12s are going to be gone. We're not going to do those anymore. And it's something that we were doing just because that's the way it's always done. But this has given us an opportunity to go, wait a minute, but what if we did something else?
They're going to be gone forever? Like they're not coming back?
Yeah, 10 to 12s.
I'm pretty stoked about that. Okay.
Just for the audience, a 10 out of 12 is when you work 10 out of 12 hours consecutively. You're not allowed to work 12 hours. The union forces only 10 hours and demands two hours of break. And one of the things at Willamette University, we try to follow every union rule possible. So you won't always see universities doing a 10 out of 12. They might do 14 hours straight, but sounds like we've got a new era. Any other? I really would love to hear from more cast members about what you miss and what you love now.
I mean, for me, sorry, Peyton, I saw your mic turn on. I mean, for me, I am a freshman on campus, so I have no idea how things are supposed to go. So just kind of navigating this new environment on a brand new campus and a brand new stage of my life and getting to connect with people on such an interesting level, it's kind of opened my eyes just in allowing myself to be more open with people, because it's harder to share like little spaces with people. I'm also a person who loves hugs, so I'm so used to doing that, and it's very hard.
Yeah, same boat as Mia. I'm not exactly fully equipped to answer this question being a first year at Willamette, but one of the reasons why I love theater so much is the community that surrounds it. And with Zoom and rehearsals being up until this last week virtual, it was a weird feeling of knowing that I have these people, but I didn't get to see them all in the same space or even meet them all in person until last night. So it's, once again, I'm not fully equipped to answer this, but it's a simultaneous missing this community and also being in it at the same time, but not quite having that same like connection, whether it be that kind of like physical connection that a lot of people seem to be mentioning, or like that, you know, the goof off time but during breaks and just like hanging out with the cast. I'm missing it while experiencing it in a slightly less intimate way.
And like going beyond that with like building the bonds that we usually get to as a community, being both Katie and I being seniors this year, I think it's been hard for us just because we're supposed to be leaders in this department as well and supposed to be helping build this community. And yet at the same time, we're just trying to make it through this year in a lot of ways, just because like we've got this last year that we need to like get through. And like it's hard to want to do like the activities that we used to do, like outside of theater bonding and things like that. And like getting to know these people and like hanging out with people outside of the work that we're doing. But we don't get to do that anymore because you have to just go home and be with who you are with, which is kind of why I'm grateful to have Katie in this, and that we're both in thesis together and we're doing this show. And then we also have another senior that's living with us that's in thesis as well. And like getting to have these people that I live with and get to be close with has been a huge saving grace for me, at least. But it's hard to feel like I have something that's so special that I know not everyone else gets to experience as well outside of that.
Yeah, and like the fact, I think it's super freaking cool that just the people in this show have found a way to like, even though like there's all these hoops we have to jump through now, we still like finds ways to like build connection and play like stupid little games during like the downtime in rehearsal. And even though it seems like everything is happening around us, still in rehearsal finding the way to develop that human connection and that connection with others, even if it is modified, it still is there.
We are toward the end of our hour together, so I'm going to wrap things up and let people know. What I would love is for the attendees here, drop a line at thtr-tix@willamette.edu. You'll find that in all your emails to the box office, and let us know how this worked. We would love to be able to continue not only this behind the scene investigation on Zoom, but we always have talkbacks and for our shows. So we'll be doing most likely after the Sunday matinees, we'll be working with talkbacks. There's some great things that we haven't addressed here. Some talks about stage acting versus directing, film versus TV. One of the things that we didn't talk about right as of yet is working with a show that is primarily a cast of males in a male-dominated world, and the casting choices that we've made here and how that affected the people's choices. So we have a lot more that we can discuss after the shows. Other than that, I suppose it's time that we be good citizens and let you go on with the rest of your life. Thank you so much, and a big, huge thanks to Susan, director of the show, of the MEMO by Václav Havel, Chris and Bobby, who are our designers, and all the clapping, wonderful, waving cast members who I cannot wait to see in person again. Thanks, everybody, and please don't be a stranger. Let us know if you have any questions. That email, we're checking all the time. Tickets will go on sale on October the 12th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, we should bow. We should do a curtain call. Bow.